This is NBC4's News Conference with Conan Nolan, your political source for over 50 years and Southern California's longest-running program.
Good morning and welcome to the Tom Brokaw News Center here at Universal City. I'm Conan Nolan. Thanks for joining us. With us is Ron Brownstein. He's a senior political analyst for CNN. He's also a columnist with Bloomberg. You've seen his stuff in The Atlantic, the Los Angeles Times, plenty of publications, a best-selling author as well. So, Ron, thanks for taking the time. Also an Angelino, I should point out. So, on Tuesday, did the Democratic Party, did they right the ship?
You know, substantially, but not entirely, right? I mean, you got to kind of, each election has its own dynamics, but I think the most important thing about this election really was how normal it was, Conan. I mean, you know, traditionally, really for the last 30, 40 years, when a president's approval rating starts drifting too far below 50, his party has had a really tough midterm election. And all year, people have questioned whether that historic relationship would still apply because voters are expressing pretty negative views about Democrats as well in polls. Well, Tuesday was a real world test of those competing propositions. And what we saw, as we have seen in the past, is the views of the guy who's actually in the White House mattered a lot more than views of the party that was out of the White House. In Virginia and New Jersey, in the exit polls, roughly half of voters said they had an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party. And yet it didn't stop Spanberger and Sherrill from winning by double-digit margins because how people felt about Trump, their growing frustration over what they're getting in the second Trump term simply outweighed any concerns they had about the Democrats. And that is, I think, a clear warning signal for Republicans in 2026.
Clearly, this was a big win for Governor Gavin Newsom. He put his chips in, and this was a bit of a gamble and turned out better than expected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Newsom, as we talked about before, you know, if we go back a year ago, all of the governors who might run in 2028, Josh Shapiro, J.B. Pritzker, Wes Moore, Gretchen Whitmer, Andy Beshear, you know, if you look at a neutral state where none of them have any intrinsic connection, they might all be somewhere between 3 and 5% in the polls. Newsom's now at 20. And they're, you know, or 18, and they are still at 3 to 5. And that's because he has really separated himself in the eyes of Democratic voters as someone who has not only shown the willingness, but the ability to push back against Trump far more than they see from the Democratic leadership in Congress. And passing Proposition 50 is kind of the jewel in the crown in that identity. And I think it will give him a further boost among Democratic primary voters. Doesn't mean, you know, that he is guaranteed to be the Democratic nominee in 2028. But the fact that he's moved from 3, 4, or 5% to something more like 20 in all of these states, that isn't nothing either. I mean, that matters. And you see in Prop 50 exactly why it's happened.
Right. And he took the bull by the horns, fight fire with fire. I think the base of the Democratic Party appreciated that a lot. Let me ask you, though, going forward, success begets success. So what people have to appreciate is that both parties are always trying to recruit people to run for office. The quality of candidate means a lot when it comes to winning back the House of Representatives. If you have a result that you saw on Tuesday, that helps the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee find people for the midterm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, what this tells you is that pretty much any place where Trump's approval rating is below 50%, Democrats have a real shot. I mean, here's one number that really kind of summarizes what happens. I mean, people may know about the Attorney General candidate, the Democratic nominee in Virginia, Jay Jones, who was rocked by this scandal in which he had sent texts kind of fantasizing about political violence. Well, 89% of people in Virginia, of voters in Virginia who disapproved of Trump, voted for Jay Jones, okay, despite everything else that he had on his ledger. And that, I think, sends a very clear signal to Republicans that that's probably what they can expect in 2026, whether you're running in the House for governor or for Senate. Somewhere around 90% of people who disapprove of Trump are going to vote for the other side. And that, I think, has a real impact on the kind of candidates you can recruit really on both sides of the ledger. But it also, I think, underscores the challenge Republicans face. I mean, Jack Ciattarelli and Winsome Earl Sears in Virginia both chose not to distance themselves from Trump in any meaningful way, even when he was doing things that clearly hurt their state, like canceling that big transit tunnel in New Jersey. And they paid a price for that. So what happens in 26? Do you have the candidates running in purple or blue-leaning terrain? Are they more willing to show a little greater distance and separation from Trump, even at the risk of him hurling some Zeus-like thunderbolts at them if they do?
Are we seeing the disconnect between Republicans on the Hill, at least some of them, and the White House? When the president says, get rid of the filibuster, you have at least 13, 14 Republican senators who right off the bat say, that's not happening. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, who's going on The View on ABC, talking about her disconnect with the White House over everything from Jeffrey Epstein to the shutdown. Are Republicans looking at what happened on Tuesday and saying, listen, I'm going to have to divorce myself somewhat from this president without trying to anger the base?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing flickers of independence, but whether you see real independence and real questioning of Trump's direction is a very open question. I still bet more no than yes. I mean, you know, look at the way Republicans immediately after try to blame it on the shutdown, try to blame the bad showing on the shutdown. There was one reason why these numbers were so bad for Republicans in Virginia, New Jersey, California, and Cuomo was kind of the stand-in in New York City. It's that people are dissatisfied with what they are and are not getting out of Trump's second term. They are not getting the improvement in their cost of living that they thought they were voting for. And they are getting a lot of other stuff from very militarized and aggressive ICE enforcement to literally tearing down the East Wing that they didn't think they were going to get. And the key number in these results this week was Trump's disapproval and the number of those disapprovers who voted Democratic. And you still, I thought, saw Republicans tangling themselves in knots all week to avoid acknowledging that simple truth. Now, they may be hoping the Supreme Court bails them out and ends these tariffs that are hurting them, but I still think it would be surprising if you see candidates push back harder than we have seen so far in these first months of the second Trump term.
Ronald Brownstein, CNN senior political analyst, a columnist, Bloomberg Opinion. Ron, always nice to see you. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.